Good evening, everyone, and to those joining from the Western Hemisphere, a very good morning. I hope you can see and hear me well. Our today's session, Building Family-Friendly Workplaces, Perspective from Global South, is co-hosted by the Global Compact Network Bangladesh and the UN Global Compact Network Sri Lanka. Thanks a lot for joining us today. My name is Farhana and I'll be your moderator for today's session. To give you my quick introduction, I am a young development professional with a background in strategic communication and youth engagement. I am currently working as a communications officer for a PVE project at UNDP. PVE stands for Preventing Violent Extremism, for those of us who might not be familiar with the term. So tonight we have convened a very stellar panel to discuss the opportunities for family-friendly development in the workplace. As a female working professional myself, I cannot iterate enough how important it is to have a family-friendly workplace. A family-friendly workplace is an essential component for equal participation in economies and effective leadership in the labor space. By promoting and embedding policies and practices that support employees, family-friendly workplaces allow employees to thrive and grow simultaneously at the work and at home. So today we want to get an overview of perspectives from South Asia and get insights on the current challenges and future possibilities regarding building family-friendly workplaces. Very shortly, I'll be introducing you to our amazing panel, but before that, for those of us who are not familiar with the United Nations Global Compact, it is the largest corporate sustainability initiative in the world with over 14,000 corporate members. Global Compact Network Bangladesh and UN Global Compact Network Sri Lanka are the secretariat of the UN Global Compact in Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, respectively, with the mission to implement the 10 principles of the UN Global Compact and the Sustainable Development Goals through engaging with the private sector. Together with their members, they're unifying and building capacity for the private sector to embrace sustainable business practices by convening and accelerating opportunities for multi-stakeholder collaboration. So with that said, without further ado, let me now begin by introducing to you Dr. Neeru Kumar, co-founder and CEO Ask Insights, who will be giving us an overview of family-friendly workplaces from her experience working with corporates across South Asia to promote diversity and inclusion. Dr. Neeru Kumar has been honored as a Padma Shri awardee for 2021 for her tireless work in the field of diversity and inclusion. She is a diversity and inclusion consultant, medical doctor, executive coach, and an NLP master practitioner. Dr. Neeru's consulting and training sessions are one of its kind as she skillfully uses diversity and inclusion, coaching skills, NLP, and hypnotherapy techniques to bring profound and authentic transformation in personal and professional lives of the participants. So, ma'am, the floor is all yours.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you so much for inviting me here. When we begin the topic of family-friendly policies, the first thing that comes to the mind is the change that has taken place over the years. The definition of workplaces has been steadily changing. From a time when it was considered totally unprofessional to even talk about your families and children, to the conversation beginning, and now to where there are so many initiatives being planned to bring about work-life integration. The pandemic time has also seen a breakdown of barriers, where children are climbing over the shoulder of parents, and it is okay. I have witnessed this entire shift myself, and can confidently say that as a coach and consultant, I have seen the change in the level of well-being in those who have benefited from the family-friendly policies. You see, an enormously large number of women have a prevailing sense of guilt. This results from the change that has taken place in the social construct of women being primary caregivers and men being the breadwinners, to now where both are working. Though more and more women have joined the workforce, the mindset of women themselves and also of the families has not yet changed. Many families reinforce the guilt that the women are already feeling. Several of the women share. They tell me as a coach that even though they are contributing to the family income, they are still being made to feel guilty and are being told that they are working for their own self-interest. Guilt leads to lack of confidence and well-being, which definitely leads to decreased productivity. Family-friendly policies help at two levels. Firstly, to break this bias. And second, to substantially overcome practical challenges which would otherwise impact the health and well-being of the family. So there are two kinds of initiatives. First are the infrastructural and big policy initiatives, and second are the softer ones. The infrastructural and big policy initiatives require a relatively larger budget, and the softer ones can be done with much less. Both are important. So let me name some of the infrastructural and big policy ones first. These are examples from organizations I have partnered with. So I'm going to talk about examples from the entire APAC region. But to begin with, I'll talk about an India example where it is a Supreme Court mandate to have a creche in any organization which has more than 50 women employees. And now many of them also have baby rooms or feeding rooms, where the mother can pick up the child from the creche, take the child to the feeding room and feed the child. Now, many organizations are also having equal parental leave, whether it is the mother or father, or it may even be the same-sex parents. So Reckitt calls it the primary caregiver. Credit Suisse is expanding the thought process of the primary caregiver. There are travel policies where children less than 2 years can be taken along with a nanny if the mother or the father is traveling. PepsiCo had done quite a few initiatives, and I'll name some of those. The first one is a location-free policy, which means that even if you get a global role, you can be in your home country and still take up that role and work remotely. By the way, they started this even before the pandemic. Then they have a paternity leave of 12 weeks. They have an adoption leave. There is a job sharing policy where the role of that particular person is divided among others when they come back from maternity. There is a sabbatical for child education. There are counseling sessions for families. There are scholarships for children in college. And now during the pandemic time, they've come up with several new initiatives like virtual childcare. In this, what they do is they tie up with several organizations for skill building of children, for summer camps, for online classes. And with the hybrid model coming up, they're doing something which is called near home creche. So not necessarily the creche has to be within the office. They're searching for the near home creche, which will be far easier in the hybrid model. And it's agnostic of gender. Either the father or the mother can avail of this. There is also, all of this is also called virtual childcare. Amazon has a ramp back program. 8 weeks after the parent returns from the parental leave, they can slowly come into their entire full-blown role. Microsoft has adoption assistance, and surrogacy-related expenses are given. Housing and access to school for children is given by IKEA and PepsiCo. In the softer skills, I remember a very interesting incident from Vodafone, where they invited the mothers and the mother-in-laws of the women employees to the office. Now, we know that in many regions of Asia, mother-in-law is still a very important person, and how she feels, her mindset is equally important for the woman to be working. So what they did is they made the mothers feel very important by saying, "You've raised such a brilliant daughter." They made the mother-in-laws feel very important by saying, "Your cooperation is so important for her to come to work." And then they tracked these women. Everybody was happy. And then they tracked these women over 5 years, and they saw that the attrition rate of these women was far less as compared to a control group. So very interesting. Then there are other initiatives like Amazon has now said no meetings, no emails after 6 p.m. Then there is peer mentoring. Then there is manager mentoring in Reckitt for women who have gone on maternity. Another interesting one is bring your child to the office. So some organizations say once a month you can actually bring your child to the office. Everybody gets to meet each other's children. It's just nice. So in addition to the benefits I have mentioned above, when women are able to bring additional benefits to the family, apart from their pay, they get an increased acceptance from families. This reduces attrition and allows them to put in productive hours, leading to progression of women. All in all, family-friendly policies are critical to gender equality. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So now I'll dive into the structure of the webinar. The structure is fairly straightforward. First, we will start with brief opening remarks of each of our panelists, and then we will dive right into our panel discussion. So against that backdrop, I would like to get us started. Hope you are all as excited as we are. As promised, now I'll be introducing our panelists. So in no particular order, first up, we have Mr. K.A.M. Morshed, Senior Director, BRAC Bangladesh. Mr. K.A.M. Morshed leads BRAC's Advocacy, Migration, Partnership, Social Innovation Lab, and Technology teams. He facilitates BRAC's policy engagement and stimulates technology adaptation to help reimagine BRAC's internal processes and program interventions. He is also responsible for fostering partnership between BRAC and the government to help expand BRAC's impact. Before joining BRAC in October 2015, Mr. Morshed led Bangladesh's policy, innovation, and communications team at UNDP for over 10 years. In that role, he managed UNDP government partnership and supervised various program interventions in the areas of ICT for D, MDGs, aid effectiveness, trade, and South-South cooperation. Next up, we have Ms. Kumudini Velmilage, Group HR Director, Ceylon Biscuits Limited. Ms. Kumudini Velmilage joined CBL Group in 2017 as the Director, Corporate HR. She holds a Master's of Business Administration from University of Colombo, a BCS degree from University of Colombo, and National Diploma in HRM from the CIPM. She's also a qualified pharmacist. And last but not the least, we have Ms. Parveen S. Huda. She is the Managing Director of CNRG Consulting and Research Gateway and President of the Association of Community Empowerment. Parveen is a widely recognized professional of Bangladesh with more than 27 years of experience in human resource management and development, project management, entrepreneurship development, and skills and employment fields. She is very passionate about the development of youth, females, and people with disabilities, and works in projects which help people to develop their skills to enter into meaningful employment. She is currently engaged with KRIA as a feminist mentor for NGO executive directors. She has been teaching as an adjunct faculty for private universities since 2000. So as you can see, we have put together a very diverse and a very interesting panel who will be covering the different dimensions of the topic that we'll be discussing today. So firstly, I would like to start with Mr. K.M. Morshed. Sir, I would like to know from you in your opening remark about the importance of establishing family-friendly workplaces in South Asia, because despite a lack of legal mechanism in Bangladesh, a lot of MNCs and large companies are stepping up to ensure a family-friendly workplace. So according to you, what is the business case for creating a family-friendly workplace, and what is BRAC's role in this place to ensure an inclusive workplace? If you could please share your thoughts with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me first start by thanking you for inviting me and BRAC in this very timely discussion. BRAC, as you might know, is an organization of 90,000 families. Of the total 100 or 1,000 staff that we all work for BRAC, and this is a really interesting organization where you have multiple generations of the same family working in this organization. So as you can imagine, this is an organization built by so many families working in different parts of the organization. This has to be a family-friendly organization. This is an organization which was designed from bottom up to support the family, not just an individual. Because you see, when you get somebody to work for BRAC, when somebody steps into the office, he's not stepping up as an individual. He has a world beyond the time he or she spends inside the office. And as you know, that the organization should concentrate on supporting the staffs, and so that the staff supports the clients or participants, and the participants support the organization. This is the cycle. You cannot support your staff if you only support the working hours, environment that is good for that working hour, that 8 hours a day. And also, even within these 8 hours, you need to create an environment where you can, the staff can actually dedicate his or her time without having to worry about the rest of the work, the rest of the concern that she might have. So if you look into BRAC, and on all those, as you know, and we all are familiar about these 10 recommendations from UNICEF about a family-friendly environment, you will see, not surprisingly, BRAC complies to all 10 plus extras. So we have our own crash. We have every floor has a room for especially women to breastfeed, take care of their child if needed. We have the full 180 days of leave, maternity leave. We have 60 days of paternity leaves. So all those that are required are all checked. But it goes beyond that. For example, a female staff may take sick leave without assigning any reason or cause whatsoever, if she needed it during menstruation or other issues health issues that he or she might be facing, and can choose to work from home or can actually take leave. The entire year, a person can take 52 days of this type of unannounced, unscheduled work from home facility beyond this leave period. So that's what we do inside BRAC. But as an organization, BRAC's impact or our area of work is much bigger than that. For example, we provide helps to other commercial entities, industry, especially ready-made garments industry. We develop their policies, especially their sexual harassment elimination policies, SHE policy as we call it. We have developed SHE policies for, I would say, dozens of companies. We run their crash, we run their complaint and redressal mechanism. We train their staff so that those organizations can also become family friendly. At the national level, we are part of almost all national initiative to create a gender responsive country. For example, I'm a member of the national committee formed steering committee to prevent child marriage. And through that committee, those platforms, BRAC is working with government to formulate the right policies and implement the policy, create the awareness and connecting the grassroots, which is needed for really having a country which is more family friendly than others. Because don't forget that 48% of Bangladesh is female, 49%, and on our women participation still is minuscule. To really promote this, to support the need of the growing Bangladesh, this is not only good thing to do, this is also the right decision, right economic decision to make, to create an atmosphere where everybody in a family feels safe and the organization will become family friendly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your remarks. I really like how you said that we have to support our staff beyond working hours, because it's really important to have that mindset. And like that is how we can actually move towards building more family-friendly workplaces. So with that, now I would like to go to Ms. Kumudini. Hello, ma'am. So from you, we would like to have your brief remarks on how businesses and partnering stakeholders challenge gender roles and promote the redistribution of care responsibilities between men and women, including by offering and encouraging uptake of parental leave from the perspective of the CBL group and its diverse operations.
Okay, right. Thanks. Thanks for the opportunity. And basically what I would do is like, I will use a kind of a metaphor to explain, what we have maybe in my introductory remarks, because let me use a kind of a 3-layered cake, right? So in that 3-layered cake, maybe on top layer, right, we have, because as a company, we have our purpose, we have our core values, and then we have our employee value proposition, right? So if you look at, because first of all, our philosophy, that should be right, to create, whatever we are doing. So if you look at our purpose of our company is actually to create enriching moments of happiness for people. So you can see, because from the top, right, the tone is right, because it is to create that, right, moments for people, irrespective of whether it is a female or a male, irrespective of whatever the diversity that they have. And if you look at even our values, and if you look at even employee value proposition, right, because it is again around, how to go about empowering, right, people, that is to basically be effective or excel in every role that they play, right? Because we are not, again, I think, most mentioned, because we are not only focusing on actually, what you do in workplace, right? It is going beyond that, because we want to ensure that, people, they can excel in every role that they play. And then, so that's the kind of, if you really look at the top, so what we want to do. So since it is very clear that we want to have, this, family friendly, or like we need to provide, create this equal opportunity for everyone. So it is coming from the top. So if you look at even the second layer that we have, which is, second layer in the sense in that layered cake, right? So if you look at our policies, our processes, all that, everything also, because it's, if you really look at, whether it is our people related policies, whether it is talent acquisition, performance management, rewards, whatever you call, like maybe it could be even anti-harassment policies, like all the people related policies that we have. Anyway, we have this equal opportunity. Let's say example, as a company, if you look at rewards, maybe there could be some companies where, rewards is basically like males, they get higher, and females maybe like it is lower. But in our case, it is not the case, whether it is training and development opportunities and everything, it's the same. And so if I were to maybe share maybe some of the stories, let's say example, you have maybe, because for us to be, let's say, create that, equal opportunity, so we have that right environment, right policies, right procedures, everything is there in the organization. So now let me look at maybe a few maybe stories, or maybe the initiatives that we have in the company, right? So if you look at in the company, maybe we anyway, if you look at, we have the higher percentage of employees in our supply chain and in our sales. If you look at this supply chain and sales generally, traditionally, right, those are male dominated anyway, like you have males, right, in these roles. But as an organization now, let's say, if I were to share a few maybe examples, we have, general manager supply chain of our natural food cluster, that is a female. If you look at, our general manager, international sales, that's a female. And then if you look at even our confectionery cluster, like in the factory, we have manufacturing manager, again, a female. So what I want to share is basically we have created or we have challenged those norms, that there are these, female roles and male roles, like it is not there in our organization, because we believe if you provide right support, everyone can be excel in whatever the role that they play, because there are no female roles or male roles in organizations. And if we go beyond, right, maybe the company, or maybe like I know that my topic is around how you create that, basically how you challenge these norms, gender norms in the organization. However, to support maybe more female employees, of course, we have certain initiatives like, we also have a creche, right? And with unique working hours in the company, that is to support, female employees. And also we have maternity leave, paternity leave, all, like in terms of policies. At the same time, if you look at our employee value proposition, that talks about, connections that count, because we want all our employees, not only to really, focus only on company, whatever we are doing, but to connect with the community. And then if you really look at, we have programs that is to support female employees with regard to our farmer network, right? So again, to challenge, basically generally, farmer entrepreneurs were males, right? But we wanted to support, females, that is with the support of other organizations like, ILO, IFC, like for female to get into that. And if you look at even going from, like, let's say example, that is again, I would say there is a business case, because we want to ensure that, like we create that, security, right? Supply security in our food supply chain. And if you look at the other side, that is like our customers, like our distributors, like our SMMT outlets, like all those, they are also like, we have programs that is to build capabilities so that, females, not only within the company, but if you look at, whoever other stakeholders who are supporting the company, for them also to get into even SMMT, distributors, female entrepreneurs to get into that by having educational programs. So I will stop maybe there, because
Thank you so much, ma'am. And like, it was really interesting to hear that how you're trying to challenge the norms, that there is no such thing as a female role or a male role, because I'm sure everyone will agree with me when I say this, that there is no such thing that a male can do which a woman can't. So yeah, really nice to hear all that from you. And now lastly, we will move to Ms. Parveen Huda from Bangladesh. Ma'am, if you could share your introductory thoughts around the successes and gaps in Bangladesh with regards to building a family-friendly workplace to increase participation of women in the workplace. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Farhana. I think Bangladesh has made tremendous progress in the last 2 decades in terms of female participating in formal workforce. They have been always involved in informal work, but I think we've made tremendous progress through our ready-made garment sector in getting women recognized as industrial workers. And at the same time, we've made fantastic policies and procedures which has enabled women to move up in terms of education. So our government has seen that women drop out at the primary level because of household responsibilities. And they have introduced different kinds of stipends and scholarships. As a result, I see, as I have been teaching for the last 21 years, I see a lot of women now participating in tertiary level education. So previously in my class of 40, I used to see 4 or 5 females. Now there's almost 50–60% women who are coming into higher level education. But unfortunately, we have achieved more than equality in terms of numbers in Bangladesh. What we have not achieved is equity. So if you see an organization organogram, you'll see the lower ranks are filled up with people, women who are not so educated and not so powerful. And they're doing most of the menial labor. So they're workers. But From supervisor and above, which is about 20% of the organization, you will see less and less and less and less, and almost 100 or 99% of the heads of organizations are female, except for development sector, of course, who have made it a point to promote women in ranks. But in the private sector, this is very rare that you see a female head. And if you do a survey, I haven't done a survey, but if you do a survey, you'll find that those female heads are either the wives, daughters of the owners. So, so actually they did not get this position based on their own merits. There's very little professionally responsible higher level CEOs in Bangladesh. So that's where I think what is happening, if you look at, so just as a case, if you look at a bank, if they take a batch of management trainee, they take about 50–60% women. But as they move up in the ranks, you will see gradual drop off. And as you head towards the top 10 positions in the organization, you'll see less than 1% women. So I always tell people that the age of career development is between 25 to 35, and the age of becoming a mother is 25 to 35. That's the best age when you should become a mother biologically. This is medical science. This is not me talking. So now they collide. So if you want to be a mother, there are sacrifices you have to make in your career. And if you want your career, then there are sacrifices you have to make in your family. And that becomes a balancing act for women. And a lot of women drop out during this phase. Now, what is happening in the corporate sector? We have a biased mindset. So I have heard from a lot of my students that when they're interviewed, they're asked questions like, are you married? Oh, you'll get married and then leave the job. Oh, you're married. Do you have children? Oh, no, if you have children, if you don't have children, you're going to take maternity leave, so we can't hire you. So from the onset of their trying to get into a workforce, I think they are facing a sort of biasness that if they're married and if they're going to have kids, they're not going to be as valuable as employees. So I think the law is good. I think the law has provisions for creches. The law has provisions for maternity leave. They have provisions for less demanding work when you're pregnant. They have allowances when you're breastfeeding. They have now made it mandatory for you to have a breastfeeding area. But what is missing is implementation and monitoring. So there's no one going and checking organizations that are they following the law. And I don't blame the government all the time, because the government also doesn't have enough funds, enough labor inspectors to go to each and every organization, especially small and medium enterprises, where they can go and check. And the larger organizations do have these facilities, but they also have very strict requirements for women. And that's why people are not able to easily qualify. I said people because it's also discriminatory for men. But I think that organizations have a fantastic role to play, especially the top tier management. If they have the right kind of mindset and they want to retain their valuable employees, be it men or women. And I think this kind of, just if they follow the law, if they just implement the things that are already there, I think we can make a tremendous progress. I'll stop here for now. Over to you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So as you said, indeed, equity is something that we still have to strive for. And of course, implementation of the law and policies is still a drawback. Like all sorts of laws and policies can be there, but if they're not put into practice, then what's the use? So at this point, I would like to go back to Ms. Kumudini again. Ma'am, I'm sure you'll agree with me when I say that COVID was not easy for any of us. I'm sure everyone will agree with me on this. So with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, what, according to you, are the pros and cons of implementing family-friendly workplace policies?
Okay, thanks. So as per my experience, like with regard to our organization, what I feel is like maybe for family-friendly workplace policies, there wasn't a kind of any negative impact, from COVID, right? Rather, I would say, let's say example, because of COVID, people started, like looking at other ways and means of, like maybe doing your job, right? So sometimes, although we wanted to really introduce, maybe work from home policies before, and maybe like, virtual working before, so, but it was limited, right? But if you really look at, with COVID, what happened was like, if you look at the other side of COVID, I would say, yes, definitely it was not easy, in many fronts, like it created a lot of, other issues. But if you look at the other side of COVID, I would say, let's say, because it gave a kind of a experience for everyone, to really, for them to realize that there are, many ways that, you can perform your jobs, right? So whether it is working from home, doing everything virtually. And if you look at family friendly, maybe because that situation also warranted, us to give, certain benefits, especially for females. Let's say example, we had to take a decision, like all pregnant mothers, like we give, like, let's say example, if they cannot perform their duties, virtually, like we had to anyway give, paid leave, right? And then if you really look at, maybe lactating mothers, we had to give paid leave. So I'm not saying that it is a kind of a family friendly, kind of a policy that we adopted, but, like I think situation really basically wanted us to really look at things, differently to ensure, because aligned to, again, I would say our purpose, our values, our EVP, like that we wanted to ensure that our employees, their safety is first. And so only thing was like, if you look at our creche, right, we couldn't basically have that creche continuously, on operation because of certain, maybe requirements, but however, we got the support from, MOHs and, all health support whenever it was, okay for us to, have the creche operation, of course, with all the safety guidelines, of course, we had that. Other than that, like if you look at, there wasn't a kind of that kind of a negative impact on our family-friendly policies. And with regard to, let's say, example, even with regard to the farmers that I was talking about, because, like ours is, we want to ensure that, like, because there is a business case, because if you want to really grow sustainably, we want to ensure that, in our farmer communities that we get these female entrepreneurs, right? So whatever the support we wanted to provide, actually, like even during COVID, because during COVID, of course, the support that they wanted, it was at a higher level, like because we wanted to really somehow or the other, get their, maybe output, right? Purchase their output, at the right price. And also, if you look at even the other side, our customers, like our SMMT, like those, because even education programs, yes, there were difficulties, right, to have physical sessions, because we have this education program that is to ensure that our SMMT, our distributors, because the focus is on next generation, building the capabilities of next generation. It is a kind of a modular program that we have. However, we want to ensure that we double, female participation. So that's what we have, like, so maybe and also what I see is like during COVID, what happened was like even these male entrepreneurs, right, they realize the risk, right? Because the business risk, because they saw, like maybe some people, because the risk to your life, right? And they wanted to ensure that, business continuity planning in their sense. So they wanted to really, like maybe educate their maybe spouses, their daughters, so that, they, for them to ensure, continuity of their business. So in that sense, also, I see a positive, because like, that created, like maybe we need to have other plans, like we need to get, female, their participation, their involvement, active involvement, even in businesses. So, so we had virtual sessions. We figured out, methods, to somehow or the other continue all, maybe practices or policies that we have actually even during COVID. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So, like, really, as bad as, as bad as COVID was, it actually had some hidden blessings in the sense that it really helped us explore what more flexible modalities of working there was out there. So that was an interesting development, which I'm sure that we all witnessed. So at this point, I would like to go back to Ms. Parveen again. Now we would like to know from you, what is the present policy framework in Bangladesh on family-friendly workplaces?
So I think, as I have mentioned before in my introductory remarks, that the laws and the policies of the government are actually very good. I mean, if those were implemented, I think we would have a lot of family-friendly enterprises around. Unfortunately, the reality is that it is not ensured. Nobody is monitoring. They don't have enough manpower to ensure this. As a result, there's a lot of workplaces which are very unfriendly for women. So cases like, as soon as you hear a woman is pregnant in the office, she starts to get a lot of traumatic experiences, abuse, verbal abuse, mental torture, and sometimes she's forced to leave the organization. And then a lot of organizations do not want to provide paid maternity leaves, do not want to provide her with less amount of load work, do not want to have a creche. They consider it to be very expensive. They don't want to spare women for breastfeeding. Even though we've seen men going off to smoke breaks a lot more than women going off to breastfeeding breaks, but somehow this is not related. So we make fun that we should start smoking rather than breastfeeding. Maybe we'll get more breaks during our pregnancy or motherhood. So it's just a joke. I don't want mothers to smoke at all. But so like I said, that the mindset and the monitoring mechanism has really made it difficult for the policy framework to be in place. So it's a good policy, but it's not implemented. I would like to actually appreciate organizations like BRAC and Moshad Bhai being very sensitive where he is. And there's a lot of other organizations working for workers' rights. And they are also enabling workers' associations or unions. And I think that the development sector has made a lot of progress in terms of making, first of all, women workers aware of their rights. Women workers being able to ask for maternity leave, setting up the procedure for sexual harassment and other kinds of harassment and how to ask for justice. And I think that the government has really empowered the labor courts. So as a result, workers, I think in general, are much more powerful now because of trade unions, which have been supported by the development sector to ask for their rights. So, so larger organizations where a lot of women workers have been enabled, made aware of their legal rights and human rights, they are actually getting or asking for or advocating for more and more benefits, which is fantastic. But this is not really a reality for the majority of small and medium enterprises. So I would say that the policy framework is actually not working very well for SMEs, but for larger organizations, we've seen a fantastic transition in the last 10 years.
Thank you, ma'am. So, of course, as you said, monitoring is needed. And of course, we also need a collective change of mind because policies really need to trickle into practice. Like if they're just there and not being practiced, then doesn't really make much of an impact. So at this point, I would like to go back to Mr. Moshad again. So, sir, in this day and age, the workplace is largely considered a man's turf. So like we have this very popular saying that it's a man's work. So in this case, how could implementing family-friendly work policies and practices encourage more women to join and continue in the workforce and encourage a more gender equal workplace? If you could please share your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. No, so let me start from where Parveen just ended. There are two sides of the story. One is organizations were not interested. The other is also required infrastructure, which is not there. So, for example, if you have the law says that if you have more than 50 women working in an organization, that woman needs to have a creche. Now think about a small cottage industry. Yeah, there are officially there are 50 women working, but if you think of its setup in a Bangladesh context, probably the entire organization is the size of a creche. Putting up a creche and expecting that organization to have a creche is going to actually drive away women worker out of that space. So garbage factories, same issues. They're saying that in a garbage factory, which is a polluted space for many reasons, including the air pollution, they're basically asking, is it the right idea to have a creche inside a garbage? So from those, then there are other issues which also encourages a mother to have a creche in the community instead of the factory, nearby community or a nearby school, a facility which is near to the factory but not inside the factory, a shared facility. So we are working with the government. We are encouraging them. We are working with the factory owners to change the policy so that the organization should ensure availability of creche, not necessarily have the creche inside the organization. And not every organization in practice can ensure the environment which is safe for the kids, for the children. So what I'm saying that it's not always is about mindset. It's not always about people not interested. It's also about some of the fine tuning that is needed, some of the capacity that needs to be built, some of the infrastructure that needs to be supported. And from BRAC's side, we are, as I said in my opening remark, we are doing all of this. We're involved in all these spaces to make it easy. Because our second realization is, having a family-friendly environment is not only a moral thing to do, a right thing to do, it's also economically the most profitable choice to have. Organizations who have a creche and other facilities always see that their workers are not leaving the organization, even if there is a competition who are offering higher salary. Because this facility, the parents value it more than the additional salary that the competitors are offering. A organization that is family friendly are seeing that their senior staffs are not leaving because they can't get 2 weeks of leave to take care of their ailing father or mother. So organizations where you really need to take 3 weeks of working from home leave or working from home permission because you have certain situation at home that needs to be taken care, sees more retention. And I'm sure Kumudiniji is better suited to tell you that how important it is to keep somebody in the organization instead of hiring a new one and training that person once again, and how expensive it is for the organization. And finally, as I said, you need to have the whole person in the work, the person with his or her entirety needs to be supported for him or her to give 100%. And that's quite important. A staff is not there to be present in the office only physically, where he or she is distracted because his family is in distress. And this is nothing to do with women and men, young or old adult. This is about the entire staff. And also, so we found out that this is, the question is not whether you can afford a family-friendly environment, whether you can go without it, especially if you're a large organization like BRAC, You can think of a BRAC where you have more than 100,000 people working, and which is not family friendly. You can imagine how many people will leave BRAC every day, and what will be the our HR colleague doing throughout their entire work day. That's not how you work. So as I say, this is not a moral thing. Forget about morality. Morality is certainly the starting point. So if you can make this case more concretely with data, I don't think you really need a big law. I didn't need you need a big moral police. People will do it because this also saves them money, saves them effort, and help them prosper. So, and of course, if you can make it cheap for them by providing share facilities, infrastructure, the right policies, right training, I think you can go a long way. And this is what we are trying right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. So really interesting that you mentioned that our place should support the staff so that they're present not just physically but mentally as well, because it's both these sides that actually make us whole. So very important to cater to both for any workplace. And at the same time, you put it very correctly that it's not just about the mindset, but rather we also have to consider whether there's actually provision for infrastructure, and that's actually a very important consideration as well. So right now, I would like to move again to Ms. Kumudini. Ma'am, you have driven the culture of some of the top organizations, as we have just learned. And now we want to know from you that what are some of the family-friendly workplace practices that you have implemented within your organization that have been really successful?
Okay, what I would do here is basically I will try to link it to what Moshe mentioned, right? Let's say example, because like he mentioned the importance, so then I will support that with, in an organization when you have that. Let's say basically we have a creche, right? And that creche, because we have unique working hours, right? Because we believe that it is a family-friendly, policy to have a creche. And unique working hours in the sense 5:30 in the morning to 10:30 in the night, because we have shift operations, right? Whether it is females or males, for their children, up to age of 12. So that, these children, they are supported with their homework, we provide, food and everything, there are teachers, there are nannies, all that is there in this creche. So as he mentioned, because we need to look at the data, what is the benefit for the company. So if you really look at, because of the creche, if you look at our data, our maternity returns, actually it increased by 23%, right? And also if you look at our absenteeism, reduced by 40% because of this creche. And also people used to take, no pay leave, right? So it became zero. So these are the benefits, as Moshe said, because there are a lot of organizational benefits if you want to link it to data, because it's not only the right thing to do. And that if you look at, as an organization, in Sri Lanka, because we are, because we are a women-friendly workplace, we are a great place to work. We got all these because, our engagement scores are high. Why? Because we have these right practices, in the company. And also I will link to another thing that he mentioned, because he said, we need to look at this whole person approach. So another initiative that we launched in the company is actually CBL Total Wellbeing Program. So we wanted actually everyone, people to understand, because it is not only your physical well-being, but it is physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and even financial well-being, right? So because since we launched this program, because we really wanted, everyone to look at everything, holistically, as he mentioned, right? So there also we can now see, basically people are not only working on, whatever their physical health, you can see, everyone is basically working on their BMI and all that is physical, right? Not only physical, because if you look at, since emotional piece is there, and what happens is it is again, how you need to support each other, in organization, let's say males, how they need to support, their female family members. And even if you look at financial well-being, because why it is important for you to save money, for you to plan for your retirement. Because when you give, actually speaking, maybe from because if you look at on the surface, you may see, what is the benefit to the organization, this total well-being thing, because actually speaking, it is more or less supporting the person, for that person to be successful in, whatever the roles that they play. But, there are benefits because, your engagement, like your productivity, your efficiency, like your profits, everything is increasing. And then if you really see, like last 2 years, if you look at, have been very difficult for companies. But you can see, as a company, Touchwood, like we did really well, right? Why? Because again, because of these programs, right? And then maybe another one, maybe I will say as a good example is working from home. As he correctly said, like when you have this working from home facility, let's say if I have a kind of maybe I can have a situation where, like actually I don't have to do anything, right? But maybe I have to be there at home, just to overlook something, like maybe my father is sick, my mother is sick, like basically in case if there is some emergency, I need to be there, right? So when you create these opportunities, actually it will basically, one thing is like you can get your work done, because let's say example that person doesn't have to apply leave and stay at home, right? So you get the things done, right? You achieve your deadlines, you achieve whatever. At the same time, look at the motivation from that employee, engagement from that employee. So because of engagement, again, like as he correctly said, your employee turnover, like will come really down, right? Your employees are engaged, and then that will have, like impact on your top line, your profitability, all your results. So I would maybe stop there, because I just wanted to connect what he said, with some of the actual examples that we have in our organization.
Thank you so much once again, ma'am. So now I would like to go back to Ms. Parveen. So ma'am, you've already shared a bit on this, but we would like to know from you, what are some family-friendly workplace policies that SMEs could implement given their limited resources?
So I think I use an example. This is a large organization, but Google, I think it has the most employee-friendly environment and the most benefits given to employees, like free food and childcare center, laundry services, parking, everything else. And I teach human resources professionals in their executive education. So I give an example of Google, and I tell them that Google must be stupid to invest so much in employee benefits. Why do you think Google invests so much? And then my students actually start to think and say, no, they're not stupid. They're making billions of dollars. So it must make sense somewhere. So that's when I talk about ROI, return on investment. So I think one of the things that is missing in when we are training human resource professionals, or we are training managers, is how to calculate a return on investment of a benefit. We only look at the cost. So for example, I give maths to my students that feeding lunch. Now, if you just calculate the cost of feeding lunch, you will get a humongous figure. But if you look at the benefits in terms of nutrition, in terms of health improvements, in terms of reduction of sick leave, and in terms of productivity, then you have a humongous return on investment. Now, that's very difficult to do. So if you give them transport facilities, you will have people stay. They will not leave your organization, because Dhaka traffic is like a nightmare. If you give them free lunch, they will not leave your organization. I have met women and talked to them who has come to me and said, Appa, I have a kid and this organization has a crash. I'm not going to leave until my baby is 8 years old, because we had a policy of having the child for 3 months to 8 years. And she said, no matter how much money another organization offers me, I'm going to stay here. So retention of your skilled employees is going to be fantastic. Now, I want to tell you a story of change. And I'm so amazed at this small policy change and what impact it had on the organization was that I don't want to name the organization, just to tell you that when they had a very good crash, it had a cost sharing policy. So mothers had to pay some amount to bear the overall cost of the crash. Now, what was happening is that men were recognizing that this crash is a good facility for their child, and maybe they had their wives working in organizations who didn't have crash. So what the men started to do was ask for this facility. They said, we're employees, we have every right to keep our children in the crash because it's a cost sharing facility. I want to share the cost. And then the company thought, okay, fine, crash is for children of employees, and there's nowhere written in the law that it cannot be for male employees to keep their children. So they allowed it. And then the men started to bring in their kids. And then I visited that organization after 2-3 years. You know, I was amazed to see the social transformation. What was happening? Fathers were bringing their kids to the creche. They were taking them out at 10 a.m. for a feeding. So they were feeding the kids snacks. They were going to the creche during lunchtime. They were getting the child out and feeding him or her lunch. So it was, for me, this small policy change was a social transformation where fathers were taking care of children in the office where the mother was working in some other organization. So you see, so like Morshid Bhai said, if a small organization cannot afford the infrastructure, then they need to come together in a community creche. They don't necessarily have to do it themselves. So this type of a fellow feeling and this type of a friendly atmosphere, and I think that it does start with mindset. If you really want to help your employees, you want to retain your skilled employees, you start thinking. And I've met an MD who has this vision. He runs a big group of ready-made garment sector organization. He has opened a creche. He has opened a primary school. He is giving scholarship to the meritorious students of his workers, and he is transforming their lives so that they can have a better job, not as a worker, but as a higher level employee in his organization. So that kind of a mindset is actually required. And that will bring not only the policy framework to be in place, but bring in social innovations where fathers and mothers all enjoy family-friendly environments.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So the story was really interesting, and it really shows how a small change can trigger such a big impact. And you were really right in saying that we often just look at the costs rather than the benefit for making our employees' life easier. And there is like a huge return on investment on this. So very important insights from you. Now we have almost come to our end. We just have one last question for Mr. Morshid. Sir, what are the economic benefits of promoting more family-friendly workplace policies to businesses and corporates? If you could share your thoughts.
I think this question was comprehensively answered by Kumudini in the last round. But I'm saying, if you're talking about, and if I have to answer it again, I can only talk about the economic benefit for a country. A country like Bangladesh, which is now in the threshold of graduating out of LDC, cannot afford to have a workforce which is restricted to only men only. We are seeing at a very good speed, the women are coming out of the agriculture sector into service sector. But at the same time, we are seeing some decline in women participation in non-agricultural sector, and part of it can be attributed to this childcare and other burden associated with women employment. I guess given this is why the government has enacted the right policies, and though I said there are certain changes that are needed You cannot enforce each organization to have their own crash. You just need to ensure they make crash available to everybody. So this transformation is a transformation that every developed country has seen. This is nothing new. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You have seen every country that graduated from LDC to middle income country to higher income country happen only when everybody participated actively. And as I said earlier, the question is not whether you can afford it. The question is whether you can afford going without it, without the policy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you so much to all our panelists for sharing their valuable insights. Now I would like to invite Ms. Shirumal Kure, board member at the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce and chairman and MD, Jetwing Travels Private Limited, to share the closing remarks. Ms. Kure is the chairman and managing director of Jetwing Travels Private Limited and chairman, Jetwing Hotel Private Limited, Sri Lanka. She is a leading figure in the travel industry who is prominently placed among the 50 most powerful women of business in Sri Lanka and the highly efficient and effective managing director of Jetwing Travels, the main inbound tour operator arm of Jetwing. Inspired by her entrepreneur father, she joined the family business to help the world experience the best of Sri Lanka's authentic hospitality while enriching the lives of local communities. She holds an MBA from the University of Colombo and is an associate member of the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, UK. She is also a director of Capital Alliance and Ceylon Tea Brokers and an independent non-executive director at Commercial Bank and Alliance Insurance. Ma'am, we would love to hear from you about your perspective and experience from Ceylon Chamber of Commerce and the tourism industry, where you have been working for a very long time. And we would also love to know from you, what is your opinion on whether legislators should be exploring the possibility of including more family-friendly workplace policies into the legislature, and how you think implementing family-friendly workplace policies would contribute to the national SDG targets and regional economic growth. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Farzana, and Ayubowan, everyone. So it's a well-known fact that about 50% of the students who pass out from higher schools of education are females, but all over the world and including in Sri Lanka, there's only about 35% of the workforce is women. That's unfortunate. And so the first dropout, I think, comes at the time of marriage, because there are people who do not wish their wives to be working. So that's the first step. And then, of course, most do give it up when they become mothers, because for a mother, especially a young mother, leaving a child at home is a huge, it's an emotional issue. And so the people don't realize that. And definitely having family-friendly workplaces would obviously help her to make that decision, because there's a lot of pressure. There's not only your internal pressure, the internal guilt feeling you have when you leave a child, but your husband, your family, the society, they're all the pressures are for a woman to stay at home and take care of the family. So as a primary caregiver, she does have a responsibility. She also has this, as I said, that guilt emotional feeling. So in that sense, having a organization that is going to assist you to make that decision, not only should you have that support system at home, maybe a caregiver at home and your parents or in-laws, or a good domestic help. In addition to that, it is also important to have family-friendly practices that will support and encourage the female to carry on working, because and so that they don't feel guilty that they're giving up their primary caregiver responsibility. So that's important. When you look at it from a Ceylon Chamber point of view, our chamber has many members who are in the apparel sector and the tea sector. So these are two industries that employ a lot of female workforce. Unfortunately, it is at a fairly lower level, at the labor level, and we don't find too many of these females rising up the ladder. So that obviously is not only because it doesn't have family-friendly work practices, because some of these do in fact they do have pressures. But I think the whole system is such, it's just geared for one type of way of working. And then we find, though I said 35% of the workforce is women, when you go up the higher levels of any organization, these numbers, these percentages keep reducing. Obviously, it's the same all over the world. And that is simply because there is this thing of dropping out. So to answer your question, whether having legislature would help, it certainly would, in my opinion. It's like asking some countries do have a requirement to have at least 30% of your members, your board members as females. So it would help, but it would create other problems, especially from a legislative point of view of having practices. It could, maybe close some of the doors that are already open, because when it's legislature, I mean, they might have to incur additional costs, or they may have to maintain certain ratios. So when it's compulsory or mandated, it may have issues, and they might stop employing females, because if you say to have a female, you have to do that. So in my opinion, it may be better to have kind of an incentive, some kind of, ability to maybe a point system, maybe link it with your Inland Revenue Department in some way, where incentives are given if you have a certain amount of women in your workforce. And also it should be graded up, at certain levels, at each level of your management, of your employment cadre. I think it is better to specify that. So if you look at it from the tourism point of view, unfortunately, although around the world it is pretty high, the female workforce number, it is also again at a lower level. I think it's mainly to do with chambermaids or spa therapists, receptionists, but very few of them climb the ladder and achieve management positions or board positions in companies. So here again is in Sri Lanka, unfortunately, we have a law that you cannot employ, or if you employ somebody, a female, after 8 p.m., you have to provide them with transportation. So that is mandated. So that unfortunately precludes a smaller company from getting women, because they might find it an extra expense. So what I'm trying to say is, although we do require women-friendly practices, I think it should come from the company. The company must understand, because it would depend on the size of the company, the type of the organization. So based on all of that, we should incentivize them to have the practices. So coming back to my tourism industry, unfortunately, as I said, in Sri Lanka, this percentage is even less than 10%, because we have a kind of a social pressure for females, or they are looked at in a kind of a negative way. When you say you're working in a hotel or you're working in a spa, it has a very negative connotation. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done first to correct that perception. And once that is done, and more and more women are coming in, I think that would certainly help. So one of the things that we are doing, or we are planning to do now, is at JetWing, is having second careers for women, where we found that people, because in Sri Lanka, people do get married pretty young. So maybe by the time they're 20, they've had a couple of kids. So we found that maybe after about 40 or 45 years, they still have about 10 or 15 years of time left for them to work. So we're just going to start a system where we call second careers, and encourage women whose children have left them to join us. And we will train them. We will give them the necessary skills. Unfortunately, it may be at a lower level, as maybe as in the kitchen, or in the rooms division, or it could even be in the reception. So people who maybe they have already worked before and then given up, or they haven't done any work, but they work at home, so they know their housekeeping and all of that. So we are looking at doing something like that. And but of course, I understand when they are younger, having creche facilities, giving the leave. Now Sri Lanka has a 3-month maternity leave. There are also companies who give them paternal leave, although it's not compulsory. It is available, and all those things help. We also have it is mandated that during a 9-hour shift, 2 hours has to be given for a mother for feeding. So these are steps that would definitely help. But having a creche in your work premises, definitely an advantage. Having co-workers who don't look at you as if you're getting a privilege just because you're a mother, or they kind of make you feel guilty when you have to take extra time off, or you have to go for a child's maybe a school meeting. So I think the whole system needs to change. They need to be thinking that a woman does contribute to the organization. They also contribute, the camaraderie, the emotional, the empathy factor that they bring into the whole equation. So once that is done, I think women will not feel bad that they are taking so much leave, or they need to, because that is also a factor that some organizations do have. So the other question about the contribution to the SDGs, definitely, because women and gender equality is a goal. So if we can have more women participate, definitely that would help. It would also help in poverty alleviation, because having another income for a family would definitely help. It will help in the education of children, because that again would uplift communities. It would also overall increase the economy of country, of that little family unit, of the company, and of the country and the region in general. So overall, having family-friendly practices definitely helps, induces or encourages a female to carry on working, or maybe even get into and also to look at it as a career rather than a job, or as a short-term thing till I get married or till I have a child, maybe I can do that. So I think we can change all those perceptions and give a woman a lot of confidence and encouragement to start a career and carry on. I think I've answered. Is that? Thank you.
So yeah, we have almost come to the end, and throughout this whole session we have unpacked the various aspects of a family-friendly workplace. We have learned about the different best practices that are out there. Then we have learned that while there are policies and laws, implementation happens to be a bottleneck, because if it does not trickle into practice, it does not really have the desired impact. We have also figured that infrastructural capacity needs to be strengthened, and there needs to be a collective will and mindset of the employer to make things easier for their employees. And of course, everyone seems to have unanimously agreed that there are myriads of benefits to be gained from a family-friendly workplace. So with that, I would like to conclude this session. I had an amazing time hearing all your insights and perspective. I hope the attendees enjoyed it as much as we all did. Thank you so much for making time for us for this session. We hope you'll stay connected with us. Thank you.